Making friends in a new country, finding playdates for your kid, finding people you can speak to that you have something in common with, finding locals that are willing to add you into their circle, this can be a really daunting feat. And I would say generally, being very intentional and being very patient is key to making this happen. And every location, every city you choose comes with its own set of obstacles. Merida, for example, has several ready-made communities that are just easy to tap into. They have groups just for expats, they've got groups for single expats, for homeschooling and world schooling, and so it was really easy to connect with people and find playdates there. San Cris, on the other hand, has plenty of Facebook groups now. However, they don't necessarily offer playdates and meetups very often. So how was I able to create a nice little community here in San Cris for Alex and myself in a relatively short period of time? So number one, I tapped into Facebook groups. Now, truth be told, I actually kind of hate Facebook, but it's undeniable that Facebook is such a wealth of knowledge and connection. It's really hard to pull away from it. So I joined the San Cristobal Facebook groups, even though none of them were necessarily geared towards playdates and meetups. Now, at the same time that I was coming to San Cris, Karen from Mom on a Journey was also coming to San Cris. In fact, part of how Alex was so willing to come to San Cris was because he knew that Karen and her daughters were coming here as well. So I was able to guarantee him at least one family that he would enjoy hanging out with. And while Alex and I absolutely love Karen and her girls, when we have playdates with other children, Alex leans playing with other kids as opposed to Karen's children. And so if I had created an environment where we only hung out with Karen and her kids, Alex would probably be super frustrated right now, feeling that he didn't have anyone kind of closer to his interests. And vice versa, while Karen's daughters, of course, love me and my family, Karen's girls have other kids that they would rather hang out with than Alex. None of our kids would have lasted more than 6 months in San Cris if we literally only had each other. And this is something that Karen and I both noticed in Merida, was that our kids really loved getting the opportunity to play with new people, making new connections, vice feeling like they have to settle for the friends that maybe we made initially. So while Merida kind of had a built-in system to make that happen, how did we create that here in San Cris? So like I said, it really did all start with Facebook. We were both tapped into the various Facebook groups that are here, and actually not always the same one, because we don't necessarily always have the same interests. And as we got to know San Cris more and more, we also kept our eyes open for locations that would work as meetup places. Playgrounds, grassy fields, that kind of thing, and especially if they have places where people can sit and ideally have at least a snack. Now, this proved much more challenging here in San Cris than in Merida, because Merida is filled with a plethora of playgrounds and green space. They've got just so many places you could choose to meet up. San Cris, especially if you're expecting a larger group, can get a little bit more difficult. And so we've tested out many restaurants that really had a hard time handling sometimes the numbers that would show up to our meetups. But nevertheless, we were very intentional. And so as we still continue to explore San Cris, we always keep our eyes open for places where groups of children who need to run around and play can meet, while the parents can relax a little more and easily chat with each other. And once we found a couple of spaces that we thought would work, then the invites start. So again, we headed to Facebook, we picked our Facebook group of choice, and we basically just post that, hey, we're doing a play date for kids, anybody wanna join? Now, for safety reasons, we never post specifics like where we're gonna meet, what time, what day. We just post that it's gonna be in San Cristobal, and sometimes we post age ranges. Anyone who's interested has to send us a personal DM, where we then let them know the specifics of our next meetup. Meetup locations and times obviously change every week, just to keep things interesting as well, again, as safety. And people who seem interested in joining the group doesn't get added to our WhatsApp group until they at least show up to one meeting where we can confirm that they are in fact in San Cris and have a child. And then once somebody leaves San Cris, especially on a permanent level, they get deleted from the group. This way, when people post, it's coming only from people with current actual information, because the same things that worked last year, let's say, when you were in a location, may just not work anymore. And the same for my history with Merida. I was there a year and a half. I have lots of memories and information about the place, but obviously my knowledge is not going to be quite as relevant as somebody who's literally in Merida right now. Now, while we do actually have at least weekly meetups, we don't necessarily post about it on Facebook every week. And one of the reasons is because we don't necessarily want to grow too fast. We want to be able to grow, meet some people, nurture that relationship at least a little bit before trying to grow again. That being said, anybody who's currently in the group is certainly able to invite anyone else who is in San Cristobal and have children, so we do tend to grow a little bit every week anyway. Now, we have encountered two kind of stumbling blocks or roadblocks when it comes to building community, and number one is that a traveler's gotta travel, and locals already have their own groups. And so in a lot of travel and expat communities, people come and go very quickly sometimes. Even people who intend to stay in San Cris or Merida long term may in a few months realize this is just not for them and move on to another location. And while freedom of movement is one of the huge benefits of having a travel life, it can get a little disconcerting when everyone's always moving. And this is why when you start creating a community, it's really a great idea to hold weekly meetups consistently, even if you feel like you and your family have already met all the people that you need to meet, because again, people will come and go. Maybe not immediately, but people come and go. And so having the habit of meeting new people be part of your life really helps with community. And in terms of local friends, we need them more than they need us. Somebody who's been living in this city their entire life, or especially for years and years, probably already has their own circle of friends. And so meeting up with my group is not necessarily high on their priority. Certainly doing it every week is not high on their priority. And so again, having consistent meetups, reaching out at least weekly to locals as well as new expats is pretty clutch in keeping the group growing. And so now Alex and I meet at least twice a week with other kids, and I've even got meetups of my own that don't involve Alex. Now, I'm a huge introvert, and so for me, 2 to 3 meetups a week is pretty much the max I can handle. But within the group, there are people who meet each other much more frequently than Alex and I do because they're much more extroverted than Alex and I. So I wanted to create this video just to show that it can be daunting going to new places and not knowing how to make friends, but it's absolutely possible and well worth your patience. And of course, if you are not the type of person to want to create your own community, I absolutely get it. But this is where getting in the habit of saying yes will serve you really well. So when you see on Facebook that somebody is posting about having a play date, try to make an attempt to go at least once so you can see what it's all about. When you see somebody posting about a book club and you enjoy reading, go to a meeting and check that out. Alex and I have also made friends by doing tours. So whether it's the free walking tour here in San Cristobal, whether it's a hiking tour, etc., just getting out of your home and participating in the local economy is a great way to meet people. And one thing that I think a lot of people who don't travel too often don't realize, and even travelers, sometimes I'll forget this, when you're in a new place, it's much more acceptable to literally go up to a random person on the street and start up a conversation. So literally just being able to go on walks in your neighborhood or in your city is a great way to meet people, see opportunities, ask questions, and see who you might connect with. And so kind of related, Karen just recorded a video on loneliness while you're traveling, and you're probably gonna wanna watch that next.